The Ioniq 6 is just sensational.
This car has a lot to live up to. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 surprised pretty much everyone who drove it when it launched last year, and in the best way possible. It's a cracking machine and remains one of the most compelling EVs on sale today. The Ioniq 6 is the 5's more streamlined, more expensive cousin, and Hyundai is having a go at refining that winning recipe with a Tesla Model 3 rivaling saloon. Calling it a Korean Mercedes CLS would be harsh, because this thing really doesn't look like anything else on the road.
But this car is about so much more than just the looks, because I think this as a package, and if you're not going to spend silly money on an EV, there's really nothing out there that offers this car's talents under one roof. There's just a quality to the way the Ioniq 6 does things. So this car rides on the same E-GMP architecture as the Ioniq 5. And we already know that's a really good base to build a solid EV from. But straight off the bat, this is not a sports car. It's not designed to be a sports car. It's designed to be a relaxing cruiser. But what you find is, because of the controls, the calibration, it's not fun, but it's actually quite satisfying to thread along a tight road like this. So the steering, the rate of response is really measured. It's in tune with the car's body movements. It's super accurate as well, this rack. So when you're on a road like this, you can play with the regen. So I've got it turned up all the way to max, and it just means you leave the brake pedal alone and just glide along on the throttle, adjusting the car through these curves. It's actually pretty satisfying. But obviously this isn't a super communicative car. It's a big heavy EV, weighs 2 tons. But where it's most at home is when you're just cruising around, when you're chilling out. Now, it's really comfortable most of the time, really compliant, but you do find it comes a little bit undone when you go over sort of harsh imperfections in the road, like an expansion joint or something like that, a pothole. You just feel a jolt and a sort of shimmy through the car. But these sort of longer wave bumps, it really absorbs well, and you just float along. It feels really good from behind the wheel. Hyundai started off with such a good recipe with the Ioniq 5, and it feels like they've finessed it. They've just fine-tuned the damping, the control weights, and the interior, which is a bit more snazzy than the Ioniq 5. You've got some nice metal trims around the screen, and these screen bezels, they're now black instead of white, which I think blends in much better with the overall cabin.
The Ioniq 6 feels really well made. The general cabin layout is very similar to the Ioniq 5, but there's just a touch more flair this time. Just look at those wing-shaped digital mirror screens. It's a thoughtful, attractive interior, and the dual 12-inch screen setup is pretty slick, despite the odd fiddly sub-menu. Our only real reservation is in the back. There's loads of legroom, but the shallow footwell isn't ideal for long-legged passengers. We don't have an official boot capacity yet, but the opening doesn't look that big either. But if the Ioniq 6 has a party trick, it's those aerodynamics. The drag coefficient is just 0.21 thanks to that slippery shape, and this is key to the car's range. If you go for the rear-wheel drive version with the bigger 77.4 kWh battery, you get 382 miles on a single charge. That's 67 more than Ioniq 5 and more than a Tesla Model 3 in long-range spec. The one we're driving is the dual-motor Ioniq 6, which has a shorter 362-mile range, but a very healthy 325 brake horsepower.
And if you switch to the sport mode, well, it properly shifts this thing. So we're doing about 30 miles an hour right now. National speed limit sign coming up. Full beans, flipping hell. Man, you do not need any more performance than that on the public road. I mean, this thing does 0 to 62 in 5.1 seconds. Now that's as quick as my old Lotus Elise. And trust me, you don't need to go faster, you really don't. So this dual motor version is absolutely rapid. Traction is never an issue. And it just bullies the road, it really does. You do occasionally feel the weight because over some bigger undulations it struggles to contain the vertical movement, but this car is Korean specific. The UK spec of the Ioniq 6 will be a little bit different in terms of springs and damper rates, but this car, it does feel very secure, very neat and tidy. But here's the thing, okay, I think the sweet spot of the range with the Ioniq 6 is going to be the rear-wheel drive version with the big battery, because with that you get the most range, and if you go for the 18-inch wheels, well, you'll get even more range again and a better secondary ride, because this car is just a little bit busy, a little bit coarse over rough surfaces. So that car, that'll be a cracker. It's not quite BMW i4 level in terms of its agility and precision in the controls, but it's not going to be as expensive as an i4 either. We reckon this car's going to cost around 45 grand when it comes out. And for the money, you'd be hard pressed to get something as good as this.